Tom Copley was appointed Deputy Mayor for Housing in January this year. Before that, he was a London Assembly member for 8 years, serving as chair of the Assembly's Housing Committee and as Labour Group Housing spokesperson. In April, he set up the Covid-19 Housing Delivery Taskforce, which reported its findings last week. This included a wide range of measures, including a massive £4.83 billion recovery package from the government. So, Tom, the task force said that London's councils have an untapped potential to deliver additional affordable homes. So how do you see that happening with resources already stretched? Do you see a bigger role for organisations like Croydon's Brick by Brick and Barking and Dagenham's Be First?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. And yes, we do see untapped potential within councils. And I think it's worth thinking about where the public sector, local government part of the public sector is now compared to where it was in the last recession that we had 12 years ago. So 12 years ago, most councils weren't building and hadn't built for many years. The Greater London Authority didn't have the devolved housing and land powers that it does now. 12 years on, we're in a very different place. Now most councils in London are building, and some councils have very ambitious development programs, which means that they've now been building up those teams. And the GLA now has its affordable homes program and the land fund. So I think much greater levers there for us to be able to intervene and to help to support the recovery. But you're absolutely right to mention the capacity issues within boroughs. I mean, it's one of the reasons why under Sadiq Khan, the GLA has been putting resources into things like the Home Building Capacity Fund and public practice, which are helping councils to develop their in-house ability to build after many years of not building. But we do need an awful lot more. And I think after a decade of austerity, which has hit councils harder than any other part of the public sector, really. And, I remember from having been on the council just how tough the situation was even before COVID. I think that the government is going to have to intervene with a significant package beyond the package that we've discussed with regards to the Housing Delivery Task Force. The government are going to have to intervene to help local government more broadly, because local government was already struggling and will struggle even more in a post-COVID world.
The report also states that affordable housing is a very stable asset due to the high need for more of it, and as a consequence of policy decisions which have meant affordable rents have actually tracked inflation. So how can you get more private investment into this sector, and should local authorities be borrowing even more to deliver more affordable housing?
Well, I remember Boris Johnson, back when he was mayor and I was on the London Assembly, used to talk about pension fund investment as the holy grail. And I don't think he certainly didn't crack it while he was mayor. And it's still something that's talked of as a sort of potential, not silver bullet exactly, but something that could be a real sort of game changer. I don't think we're quite there yet. Various organizations have been doing work on this, and it's certainly something that I'm interested in exploring. But I don't think, even if we did get investments, more institutional investment from pension funds, I don't think that we can get away from the fact that we need significant public sector investment. Now, the lifting of the borrowing cap on local authorities was a very positive thing. And earlier you mentioned organizations, council-owned housing companies like Be First and Brick by Brick. A lot of these were set up, of course, in order to try and give councils greater access to borrowing because of the HRA borrowing cap. Now that that borrowing cap has gone, it does give councils a bit more capacity, but we're still sort of talking relatively marginal compared to what's needed. And the mayor and the G15 have come up with this research, which has found that we need above and beyond the 4.8 billion we have over 5 years for affordable housing. We need 4.9 billion a year over 10 years if we're going to get up to the place that we need to be. So while things like additional borrowing and pension fund investment can make a bit of a difference, the crucial thing is getting that government investment.
You also want to see more precision manufacturing or prefabrication, as I like to call it, and suggest the mayor should bring together a strategic alliance of London-based housing providers to support the bulk purchasing of home building components to help achieve economies of scale. Now, this idea has been around for some time, and how can you make progress to actually make that happen?
So this is an area that I'm extremely interested in, and one where we're doing some quite in-depth work at City Hall at the moment, looking at what we can do along with the boroughs to help support precision manufactured housing, modern methods of construction, whatever you want to call it. One thing that came out quite clearly during the task force work was, well, firstly from people I've spoken to who've been involved in this field for quite some time, that this is an idea that's time has come. Particularly given the potential loss of construction workers for various reasons, whether it's the aging workforce or in particular in London, the fact that so many of our construction workers are EU nationals, and still that uncertainty about Brexit. Now is the time to invest in modern methods of construction and precision manufactured housing. And I think one of the key things that came out of the task force work was the need to create a pipeline and certainty, so that manufacturers know that demand is there and they can sell this type of housing. And that's what the sort of core of this task force recommendation is about. It's about the public sector in London, the boroughs and the GLA coming together in order to create this certainty and this demand and this pipeline through the development work that's being done here. And I know it's not just us that's thinking about this. This is something that Homes England are very interested in as well, and the rest of the country.
Now, the other thing you mentioned is small sites, which have been slightly contentious in discussion between you and the MHCLG, and you suggest that they can be delivered relatively quickly, but these do tend to be rather low on borough agendas and with under-resourced planning departments. I mean, I can actually point you to small sites where it has taken 9 months just to get a pre-app agreement. So what can the mayor, what can you do to support small sites delivery, or do you have to just leave it to the boroughs?
There is work that the mayor has been doing. I mean, there was the small sites policy in the London plan, although unfortunately the planning inspectors sort of poured cold water on that, which I think was a real shame. The mayor has also actively been pursuing this through the Small Site, Small Builders programme, which has taken a number of small public sector-owned small sites and taken them through and out for development, including a number of TfL sites. And TfL has been doing its own piece of work, looking at how it can make a good use of its own small sites for housing delivery. And that includes on the TfL sites 2 community land trusts, which I'm very pleased about. Boroughs are doing some innovative work as well. I mean, I actually read at the weekend in the Evening Standard that Hackney Council are taking a small site out to be developed as a self-build, with the council helping people to self-build on it and then retaining an equity stake in the development, which I think is a really innovative idea. I think sort of Grand Designs Hackney they're calling it. And there's a history of this. I mean, I was on Lewisham Council in the 1980s. Lewisham pioneered council self-build on sites that were considered too small and difficult for the council to develop itself. So there is a history there, and I think this is an area where the boroughs and the GLA need to be working in partnership through planning and through their own sort of housing delivery programs in order to bring these sites out for development.
Yes, well, of course, Lewisham was the home of Walter's Way and the innovative housing delivery there, self-build, which was such an iconic idea that it's a pity it hasn't been repeated more frequently.
Absolutely. I mean, probably only about a mile away from where I'm sitting now is Walter's Way and Seagull Close. Yes, I think he said if you can soar in a straight line, you can build your own home.
So can you tell me now, what's the situation with rough sleeping? I mean, has the additional government funding helped reduce numbers in London? And how do you see the longer term problems you face, since increased unemployment is likely to exacerbate the situation?
I think what we've seen with the COVID-19 response to rough sleeping is what can be done when we all really pull together, and crucially, what can be done when there is additional government funding. I think what we've found with this, and you know, I'm incredibly proud of the work that the City Hall rough sleeping team has done in partnership with boroughs, in partnership with our charity partners and MHCLG. But I think it has been an absolutely incredible and world-leading operation that has genuinely saved lives. I mean, the COVID-19 infection rate amongst homeless people in London is about 3 to 4%, compared sadly to 66% in San Francisco. And it shows that where there is a will, and crucially where there is funding, we can solve these problems or go some way towards solving them. And I think that if the government really sticks with this, keeps the funding going, and they have announced now this rough sleeping accommodation program, which London is getting a share of, which is extremely welcome. But if we stick with this for the long term, talking about, people might be uncomfortable to talk about opportunity in crisis, but there is genuinely an opportunity to make a transformative difference to rough sleeping in London, and to help the government to meet their own target, which I believe is to end rough sleeping by the end of this Parliament.
Most of what you say and what you want to do requires more government funding. So are you concerned about what appears to be an increasing rift between Whitehall and City Hall?
I want to work with the government and have a positive working relationship with the government. There's always going to be disagreements where the mayor and the governing party government are from two different political colours, and I'm always clear that I'm willing to meet people halfway if they're willing to do the same. I think it's a shame that despite the fact that I wrote to the Housing Minister, Chris Pincher, requesting meeting just before I formally took up office about 4 months ago, he still hasn't found the time in his diary to meet me yet. And I think that is a shame, because whatever political disagreements there may be, there are always areas of common ground. And in any case, there is nothing to be lost by having that conversation, and everything to be gained. So, I would urge him to get in touch and to get that meeting in the diary, because this is an absolutely crucial issue for London. Housing was one of the top issues in London before COVID-19. And I think we can safely say that, all of us having been locked down in our homes for a significant amount of time during COVID-19, it's become an even bigger issue as a result of the pandemic.
Tom Copley, thank you very much for your responses to my questions, and good luck with delivering your task force proposals, and good luck with housing more Londoners more affordably. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.